I'm honored to have you here, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hello and a warm welcome to our channel. Today, we're delving into Juan Antonio Corretjer. Juan Antonio Corretjer Montes, March 3, 1908 – January 19, 1985, was a Puerto Rican poet, journalist and pro-independence political activist opposing United States rule in Puerto Rico. Get ready for an enlightening exploration as we dig into early years and understand its role in the broader context. Corretjer birth name: Juan Antonio Corretjer Montes, was born in Siles, Puerto Rico, into a politically active pro-independence family. His parents were Diego Corretjer Hernandez and Maribelgida Montes Gonzalez. His father and uncles were involved in the Siles Uprising of August 13, 1898, against the United States occupation. As a lad, he would often accompany his father and uncles to political rallies. He received his primary and secondary education in his hometown. In 1920, when he was only 12 years old, Corretjer wrote his first poem, Canto a Siles, I Sing to Siles. In 1924, Corretjer published his first booklet of poems. Corretjer joined the Literary Society of José Gautier Montes, which later would be renamed the Nationalist Youth, while he was still in elementary school. When he was in 8th grade, he organized a student protest against the United States in his town. He was expelled from his local high school for organizing a strike to have it renamed for José de Diego. Corretjer was then sent to school in the town of Vega Baja. As we embark on the next leg of our journey, let's unpack the layers of nationalist youth and examine its core elements. In 1927, he moved to San Juan and worked as a journalist for the newspaper La Democracia. He later moved to the city of Ponce, where he published his first two books of poetry, Agiba 1932 and Ulyss 1933. Throughout his life, he wrote for various newspapers and publications in Puerto Rico, Cuba, and the United States. In 1935, Corretjer traveled to Cuba and joined an anti-Batista group whose aim was to overthrow the US-backed Cuban dictator. He also traveled to Haiti and to the Dominican Republic looking for international support for Puerto Rico's independence movement. In 1935, 4 nationalists were killed by the police under the command of Colonel East Francis Riggs. The incident became known as the Ropidras Massacre. The following year, in 1936, 2 members of the Cadets of the Republic, the Nationalist Youth Organization, Hiram Rosado and de los Beauchamps, assassinated Colonel Riggs. They were arrested and executed, without a trial, at police headquarters in San Juan. In 1936, Corretjer met and became friends with the nationalist leader Pedro Albizu Campos. He was named Secretary General of the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party. On April 3, 1936, a federal grand jury submitted accusations against Pedro Albizu Campos, Juan Antonio Corretjer, Luis Fahrenheit Velasquez, Clemente Soto Velez, and the following members of the Cadets of the Republic: Erasmo Velasquez, Julio H. Velasquez, Rafael Ortiz Pacheco, Juan Gallardo Santiago, and Pablo Rosado Ortiz. They were charged with sedition and other violations of Title 18 of the United States Code. Title 18 of the United States Code is the criminal and penal code of the federal government of the United States. It deals with federal crimes and criminal procedure. As evidence, the prosecution referred to the creation, organization, and the activities of the cadets, which the government made reference to as the Liberating Army of Puerto Rico. The government prosecutors stated that the military tactics which the cadets were taught was for the sole purpose of overthrowing the government of the U.S. A jury composed of 7 Puerto Ricans and 5 Americans ended with a hung jury. Judge Robert A. Cooper called for a new jury, this time composed of 10 Americans and 2 Puerto Ricans, and a guilty verdict was reached. Corretjer was sent to the infamous La Prensa prison for 1 year in 1937 because he refused to hand over to the American authorities the Book of Acts of the Nationalists Party as a result of his political beliefs. In 1937, a group of lawyers, including a young Gilberto Concepcion de Grocia, tried in vain to defend the Nationalists, but the Boston Court of Appeals, which held appellate jurisdiction over federal matters in Puerto Rico, upheld the verdict. Albizu Campos and the other Nationalist leaders were sent to the federal penitentiary in Atlanta, Georgia. In the following section, we'll be immersing ourselves in the captivating world of Puerto Rico's gag law. On May 21, 1948, a bill was introduced before the Puerto Rican Senate which would restrain the rights of the independence and nationalist movements on the archipelago. The Senate, controlled by the Partido Popular Democrático PPD and presided by Luis Muñoz Marin, approved the bill that day. This bill, which resembled the anti-communist Smith Act passed in the United States in 1940, became known as the Ley de la Mordaza gag law when the U.S.-appointed governor of Puerto Rico, Jesse Parro, signed it into law on June 10, 1948. Under this new law, it would be a crime to print, publish, sell, or exhibit any material intended to paralyze or destroy the insular government, or to organize any society, group or assembly of people with a similar destructive intent. It made it illegal to display a Puerto Rican flag, sing a patriotic song, and reinforced the 1898 law that had made it illegal to display the flag of Puerto Rico, with anyone found guilty of disobeying the law in any way being subject to a sentence of up to 10 years imprisonment, a fine of up to us, or both. According to Leopoldo Figueroa, a member of the Puerto Rico House of Representatives, the law was repressive and was in violation of the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which guarantees freedom of speech. He pointed out that the law as such was a violation of the civil rights of the people of Puerto Rico. With our curiosity piqued, let's embark on a dedicated exploration of Nationalist Party revolts of the URSS and its fascinating intricacies. On October 30, 1950, the Nationalists staged uprisings in the towns of Ponce, Maguez, Naranjito, Arequipa, Uchudo Uprising, San Juan Nationalist Revolt, and Jayuya Uprising. Known as the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party revolts of the URSS, the revolts were a widespread call for independence by the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party against United States government rule over Puerto Rico. It specifically repudiated the so-called Free Associated State Estado Libre Asociado designation of Puerto Rico, a designation widely recognized as a colonial farce. The revolts failed because of the overwhelming force used by the U.S. military, the U.S. National Guard, the FBI, the CIA, and the Puerto Rican Insular Police, all of whom were aligned against the Nationalists. This force included the machine gunning of Nationalists all over the island, and the aerial bombing of the town of Jayuya. Hundreds of cadets and Nationalists, among them Corretjer, were arrested by mid-November 1950, and the party was never the same. Get ready for a thought-provoking discussion as we delve into literary style and themes and its impact on our understanding. The themes and inspiration for his poems and essays were devoted to his defense of his native land. Corretjer's epic poem Alabanza en la Torre de Siles, Praise in the Tower of Siles 1953, is considered one of the representative works of the Neocrealismo movement and has had a strong influence on many later poets. In Corretjer's poetry, the Taino is no longer an idealized figure but allegory of revolutionary legacy. In the prologue of Yerba Bruja, Corretjer states it was not his intent to dig up a mummy but to bring to light the splendor of the indigenous imagination that lives on in our own. His poetry spans several decades and transcended any particular literary movement. The Puerto Rican Athenaeum awarded him the honorary title of Puerto Rico National Poet. Get ready to uncover the mysteries surrounding selected list of works as we navigate its intriguing terrain. Poetry Gibbon 1932, Amor Puerto Rico 1937, Love of Puerto Rico, Cantico de Guerra 1937, Song of War, El Liro 1944, Timmerman, Tierra Nativa 1951, Native Land, Yerba Bruja 1957, Bewitched Grass. Puerto Rican musician Roy Brown Ramirez set many of Corretjer's poems to music, particularly Borrica and La Luna, and novated to US, a later version by artists such as Joan Manuel Serrat, Mercedes Sosa, Antonio Carbonvoli, Haciendo Punto en Etrusan, Phil La Vega, Lucis Itabantes and others, Distancias, Diana de Goulart and Abamon. César's Juicio Histrico Historic Trial La Revolution de Laws, The Revolution of Laws, Nuestra Bandera, Our Flag. Published book sold by Zu Campos and the Ponce Massacre 1965. This book, sometimes called a pamphlet, was written in English as it was intended for the US American public audience. Its purpose was to raise conscience among the American people about the event of the Ponce Massacre, as most Americans had never heard of the involvement of the US government and the US media in that massacre. The pamphlet, currently January 2014 out of print, was reprinted in its entirety as Chapter 19 in Francisco Hernandez Vasquez's book Latino Thought. Rauman and Littlefield Publishers. Imogen de Borinquen, Ivy Yerba Bruja, 1970. Aguinaldo Escalata, 1974. Aguinaldo Escalata, 1974. Prisionero 70,495, 1976. Pausa para el Ama, 1976. La Lucha por la Independencia de Puerto Rico, 1977. Propotica Paso of Venezuela, 1977. El Cumplido, 1979. Los Días de Contados, 1984. Published posthumously. Albumzas, Anteliga, 2000. Yerba Bruja, 1992. Now, it's time to shift gears and explore legacy. The Instituto de Cultura Puerto Rico, the Institute of Puerto Rican Culture, published a collection of his poems in 1976. Corretjer died in San Juan, Puerto Rico, on January 19, 1985. He was buried at Antiguo Cementerio Municipal in Siles, Puerto Rico. A high school in Siles is named after Corretjer. A monument of Corretjer is found at a lookout in Siles. I love interacting with my viewers, so leave me a comment and I'll do my best to respond.